Hi, so I've been wanting to make this video for a very long time. There's a lot of people who think that P is equal to NP, and there are a lot of people who think P is not equal to NP. There are actually some people who think that P and NP is not a solvable question, and there are a lot of people who attempted to prove whether P is equal to NP or not. And what I want to tell you right here is that if you see one of these proofs, as I do all the time, what I'm going to give you here is some reasons to suspect why it is false. If the proof passes all of these checks, then it is more likely to be true, but here are some reasons why if you see a proof and it falls into one of these categories, then you can quite simply say that the proof is false. So the first reason is that it's not written in LaTeX. If it's not written in LaTeX, it is not a good sign for the proof. So on to actual reasons. One of the main reasons why a P versus NP proof may be false is if it doesn't prove simpler results. And one example of this is, let's consider the SAT problem, the prototypical NP complete problem. And if we can show that it's in P, then therefore P is equal to NP. The problem is that if you have a certain technique that doesn't work for versions of SAT that are in P, then the proof cannot possibly be true. So as an example, if we consider clauses in a formula of size 2 instead of size 3, then that is the 2 SAT problem, and that is polynomial time solvable. In fact, it's even linear time solvable. So if the proof doesn't show why that particular technique does not work for these versions of SAT, for example, then it cannot possibly work in the general case. And so there's this theorem called Shaffer's Dichotomy theorem, which shows when or when not certain forms of SAT are in P or are NP complete. If you can show that it doesn't work for the things that are in P, then you're in good shape. If you can't show that, well, your proof might be flawed. The third reason is more about the techniques to show separation between complexity classes. So as an example, if you use an oracle, a Turing machine oracle, that is a common way, or at least an attempt, to try to distinguish one class from another. Another technique is if we just invent a fast algorithm for an NP complete problem, then that'll be good. If you use dynamic programming, for example, there's no known way of using that technique in order to solve the problem. If your proof uses these techniques, unless it does it in a completely new and novel way, it's not likely to be true. The fourth reason is that it probably should prove weaker results along the way. This problem is so immensely hard that is unlikely it's possible, but it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to prove it straight away. In fact, there's a proof, I'm not sure if it's an actual proof, but there's a argument that says that natural ways of proving separation here, those kinds of things will not work for the P versus NP problem. So if you try to approach them in that particular way, then without proving results along the way, then it is not likely that your proof is correct. The fourth reason is mainly about the humbleness of the author. So if the author goes, well, I proved this amazing result. P is equal to NP now, and the world is different. It's likely to not be a correct proof. Sorry. The next reason is mainly about why does this technique work when previous techniques have not? So there's this page, and I'll link it in the description, of over 100 different proofs that people have tried to show that P is not equal to NP, or P is equal to NP, or is just not a solvable problem. Every single one of them is false in terms of the proof being correct. So the thing is that if your technique, in order to prove one way or another, does not show why all of those techniques don't work, then your proof is either one of those techniques or just a slight variation of them, or it's just not correct. The next reason should be that it has to be very, very technical. So if it's just this broad overview of the general way that the proof is done without actually giving the details of why P is not equal to NP, for example, then it's very likely that your proof is not correct, because a lot of recent proofs that are about the P and NP problem have a great overview of what the proof actually is, or the proof attempt. The problem is in the details. So very often it's the case you have this very minor lemma that is used in the paper, and that just blows up because this one lemma doesn't work, and all of the other results hinge on this one lemma. And that's why the proof ultimately fails. So if you can't show that your proof works at a very technical and precise level, then it's very likely that your proof is not correct. So the final reason is about lower bounds. So we usually think of algorithms and complexity in terms of upper bounds. This problem runs in a certain amount of time, or an algorithm for it runs in a certain amount of time. The thing is that we need to have lower bounds in order to show that P is not equal to NP, that all of the NP complete problems, and maybe potentially others, are at least polynomial, in fact, maybe sub-exponential in time and higher, no matter what algorithm you pick. And there's no real known way of doing that. In fact, the best known lower bounds in terms of runtime are like linear runtime. So the best, what are called circuit lower bounds, are like 5n, where n is the input size, whereas we need like 2 to the n. And that's a huge separation between what we can actually prove unconditionally right now, and even conditionally on some result that has not been proven yet, we still can't get all the way to exponential in terms of the lower bound, which we believe to be true. It's just that we can't actually prove it. So those are my reasons on why, if you see a proof that P is not equal to NP or something like that, then if it doesn't pass one of those checks, it's likely to not be a correct proof. Problem is that I see proofs like this all the time. If you go to the archive right now, ARXIV, and look at the computational complexity section, you will see something like this. You'll see, I prove P is not equal to NP. And these are academics who are making a fool of themselves by saying, oh, here's my proof of P is not equal to NP. The world has changed because of my proof, and it's just not true. So please don't do that if you're an academic. So hopefully that was interesting. Leave thoughts about P versus NP in the comments down below. As always, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. There are many other links if you want to support the channel further down in the description. And hopefully that was interesting. I'll see you next time.
That was easy. That was easy. That was easy.